Good afternoon. I received a very nice comment from Atman Tiferet on my video about the new town of Palm Tree, New York, that Curious Joel became its own town and seceded from the town of Monroe. I'm going to paraphrase Atman's comments. Basically, Atman begins speaking highly of the Satmar community, makes some not so accurate comments about my family life, which is okay. It's nobody's business. I'd rather people not know. And I talk too much. I'm a little too open, and that's okay. Maybe it's not okay, but it is what it is. And then the question was, how do we handle? I don't even know if I mentioned anything about my children attending school in the Satmar community, but the truth is they do. And what's my insurance policy as far as them making a living? How are they going to manage with the educational standards, and comparing it to the literature schools, where many of the literature schools, and not all, offer more secular studies for the boys than the Satmar schools do, and what are my plans as far as those things are concerned, my children receiving an education in these areas. It's really nobody's business what I do, and I think this is, with all due respect, kindly, and I think this is really the issue at hand, that people butt into other people's business. I'm more of a libertarian in a lot of things, and that's a classical libertarian statement, is just mind your business. It's not your business how my kids are educated. But with that being said, I want to explain the reason why I am discussing these things is to explain my ideology, as well as a little bit of my approach personally, and how I personally handle these things, which really, like I said, is nobody's business. But I will share it because I think there is a lesson to be learned in that, and that's the only reason why I would be willing to share it. First things first, this whole ruse that somehow the Satmar community, they're not equipped to make a living, it's patently false. The only reason why so many people in the Satmar community are on welfare programs, and far fewer are now because the economy is better. So many people who were on these programs no longer are, because they're making, they're more successful in their business and so forth, and they're not on these programs anymore. And when the economy was bad, I was on those programs, and I'm someone with a college degree. My wife has a college degree. And when Obama was the president, and the economy was horrible, we were on food stamps, we were on Medicaid, we were on Section 8. Now we're on none of those. I was on Medicaid for a little while after I was no longer on Section 8 or food stamps, and now I'm not even. Now I can proudly say I'm on none of these programs. My paycheck still comes from the government because I have a government job. But even the government jobs were not available when the economy was bad. I mean, that's, I know people, they put down this idea of trickle-down economics, but it's true. Meaning even the government jobs now, for a few years there were no chaplaincy contracts available in the federal government. I used to hold a federal contract, and for a long time you couldn't find one in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and now they're opening again. Why? Because when you lower the tax rate, you have more revenue, because people are making more money, and they have more to pay, and they're more taxpayers, and it's better for everybody. And the same thing, for years I was applying for the very job that I have. There wasn't any openings for a job like this. And I saw an opening, and I took the job, and I have a wonderful, good full-time government job as a chaplain, a prison chaplain. And I love it. And a lot of things financially are doing better, and I attribute this, of course it's all from heaven, but I attribute financially in a natural political way to the difference between Barack Obama's approach and Donald Trump's approach. That, and I truly believe, and I know it sounds disrespectful, and I don't mean any disrespect to the office of the president, but I truly believe that Barack Obama wanted people to be in poverty so they would be enslaved to voting for the Democrat Party. And I truly believe that Donald Trump wants people to be successful and have jobs and be doing well. I mean, I think the poor economy under Obama was by design. But that being said, so here I was, a college graduate with the education. The education didn't help me. I was working 3 or 4 jobs, and I was still, I was making an okay living, but I needed food stamps and Medicaid, and at a certain point, Section 8, but Section 8 was more of a headache than it was anything, because then my landlord raised the rent. Now that I'm not on Section 8 anymore, and now I'm paying full rent, higher than I was before, it's not so much fun, but it is what it is. So then, but I can afford it now, so it doesn't matter. And a lot of people are in that situation, but during that time, even though I knew it would mean that I'm getting less in Section 8 or food stamps or whatever, I wanted to get a job. I tried as much as I could, and a lot of the times I was stuck in these jobs that I was just breaking out even, meaning, and I didn't mind. I would rather work than take those, but like from what I was losing in welfare and from what I was gaining in working, I was not only breaking out even, I was probably less because of the wear and tear of my car. I was traveling far. So one job I had, and again, here I'm a college graduate, and I was a chaplain in a nursing home, and making $18 an hour, and driving to the Bronx. I don't live in the Bronx. I live 100 miles away from the Bronx. Driving 100 miles each way to go work a job for $18 an hour as a chaplain in a nursing home, right? 20 hours a week, a half-time job. Did that 20 hours and another job, 15 hours, where I was making more, not only more per hour, but more total. The 15 hours was making more than the 20 hours, but that's how it was. That was my situation. Now, and I still have to travel far for work because I live in a rural area, but I'm not traveling. Now I'm traveling 40 miles for work, but I have a full-time job every day, and I'm making more than $18 an hour, and it's full-time. So the thing was, there I was making 14 hours an hour. Who owned that? Who owned that nursing home in the Bronx? A Satmar younger man, younger than me. He didn't have a GED, let alone go to college, but he was in business, and he was a multimillionaire. All right, so he comes from a wealthy family, whatever, but he made investments. He works hard, but the thing is that these people imagine that education is some kind of panacea. They're fooling themselves, because here my wife and I, college graduates, struggling to make ends meet at the time when the economy was bad. Now, Baruch Hashem, things are better. And this guy, he went to Satmar schools. I know him. I know his father. I know his family. I know his uncle. I remember I was at his uncle's house once for Shabbos, and this kid wanted to impress what good English he spoke. This was when he was, a 16-year-old teenager. And now, he's married and has a family, whatever, and that's where he is. And he comes from a famous family there, and a prominent family in the community. But that's the situation. So this whole idea that an education means you're going to make a living, it doesn't. It's all min hashamayim. And the other thing is that, all right, so the education doesn't mean you're going to make a living, but not having an education means you won't make a living. Also not true. Now, a lot of people, want to dedicate their lives to learning kollel, and that's what they do. And that's also why they're on these programs, because kollel doesn't pay a lot of money. They report their salary, what they make from the kollel, but they're not making a lot. And so legally, and that's a job, being in kollel, you get paid a salary. But that's what they're doing for a living. And the wife is working, and she's also reporting what she's making, but they're on these programs. And the thing is, even if you're making 40 or even 50,000 a year, and you have a big family, 6 kids, 8 kids, 10 kids, you're going to be on these programs. So this idea, and you're not going to live in a hovel, but you're not going to live a fancy lifestyle either. But you live in a nice, normal lifestyle, that's these programs are there. Whether that's what they're there for or not, they're there, and it's legal. And it's not our business to say, we shouldn't be taking it just for. This is supposed to be for people. What the racists say is that's supposed to be for those people, but not for the Jews. They can, they can know how to make a living, and the people are seriously, they're not making a living. That's how they survive. Whether it's right or wrong, you got to change the system for everyone. You can't just change it for. You can't just say that this race can take food stamps and Jews can't. You can't make such a thing. Anyway, when it comes to these things with these questions, so that's one answer, is that people, they don't have these things, and altogether, and what you're telling me, people who go to public schools, they're doing, most of these people that you're talking about, who it's politically correct to say those people could be on food stamps, right? They're not sending their kids to yeshivas. They're sending their kids to public schools, and they're coming out with nothing. So don't tell me that the secular education is something special. It doesn't. That's going to mean that you're going to make a living. And those people, they don't have the big families necessarily. They don't have these other things, and that's their situation. And I don't mean that in a racist way. I just mean that in a realistic way. Now, that's one side of the story. But my issue, you mentioned that you have a lot of respect for Naftali Monster and the work that he's doing, Yafed.org and so forth. I don't. And the thing is, when it comes to his stated goal, I don't have a problem with encouraging, if the parents want to, there are parents who want to have more of a secular education for their kids. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not against a secular education personally. My approach is like this. If you go to in Judaism we have kosher laws. We don't mix meat and milk. So that means there's certain restaurants, they're meat restaurants or milk restaurants. You don't go to the pizza shop and ask for a chicken sandwich, because this is a dairy restaurant. They don't serve meat. You make the decision to send your kids to Satmar school. You know what you're getting. The girls are going to get a full English education. The boys are going to get a minimal secular education. They're going to meet the legal requirements, and that's it, and nothing more. And that's what they do. And essentially, legally, these kids could be considered high school dropouts, because legally, at a certain point, you're allowed to drop out of high school, legally, and that's the situation. And they're not truant; they're learning, but you're sending them to school for these purposes. That's what you. Now the thing is, and that's the parents' decision. It's not the government's position. As I said from the beginning, I'm very much a libertarian. And so, to me, freedom of religion and liberty and all these things are much more important than whether or not a kid in school is going to learn about Shakespeare or George Washington or something. Even though I'm supportive of learning Shakespeare and George Washington, I love that stuff personally. But if another parent doesn't want to, and they have a sincere religious belief that's different than mine, which I know a lot of people in that community do, and it's a sincere religious belief, and it's been explained to me, and it meets the muster of what's called a sincere religious belief. It would be, as I work as a prison chaplain, and we have to, measure if someone's asking for religious accommodation. What are you doing? Can I finish what I'm? It would meet the muster of what's considered a sincere religious belief, as far as being accommodated in a prison. That's how I would understand it. Meaning, if someone would say, and I know people like that they were asking for religious accommodation in another prison where I used to work when I was a contract chaplain, and it was someone from one of these types of communities, but a very, very right-wing type, and he didn't want to, and he felt it was against his religious belief, and he quoted rabbis to say that it's a sinful thing that to have to learn these types of secular studies. That's how he understands it. I follow different rabbis than he does as far as these types of questions. But that was his opinion, and it certainly is considered a sincere religious belief. And it's totally justified as far as I'm concerned, what he's saying there. Even though, the Satmar Rebbe really didn't say that as far as elementary school, studies and things like that, but that's the situation. Now, now going on with that a little bit further, the question, so to me, religious freedom is what comes first before all these other questions, and this is a sincere religious thing. The whole measles thing, which they have been giving religious exemptions for, is not, as far as I know. I don't know any religious source that I can think of that could say that one is not allowed to what do you call it, to take a vaccine. I haven't found any. They believe for other reasons, but I have found sincere religious sources that say that it's prohibited to study secular studies, and there are sincere religious sources that say the opposite. And we have a saying in Judaism, "Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim," both this and this is the word of the living God, and they're both kosher, Jewish ideas. And so I don't think the government should be saying that this one is better than that one any more than they can say that Christianity is better than Judaism or Islam or something else. They can't say that modern Orthodox Judaism is preferable in the government's eyes to Satmar Hasidim, or that Litvish is preferable, or that the Amoraim are preferable to the Bnei Yol. They can't say that either. The government has no say in these things. It's the individual who decides. Now, people talk about children's rights. It's the parents' rights. When the child turns 18, that's when he has the right to ask for something different, to demand something different. The child could ask. Now, the question is, what about my family? It's nobody's business, but I'll tell you like this. I know in Lubavitch, they also have more than Satmar has. Meaning in Satmar, they have English to a certain point. In Lubavitch, they don't. At least in certain Lubavitch schools, they don't. And yet the Lubavitch Chassidim do okay. And so what a lot of them do, if they send their kids to these schools where they don't offer any secular studies at all, they the way they handle that is that they hire a tutor to learn secular studies with their sons, because they're not getting in school. And it's like I said, You don't go to the Milchiga restaurant and ask for fleischigs. You go to Satmar Cheder to learn Yiddishkeit, and you can get a tutor for the secular things. You can do homeschooling for the secular things, and you can get with a homeschool. You can get a not just a GED. You could take Regents tests. I taught in a literature school where we offered the Regents tests, and this one kid, his parents, they already had the Regents test already done, so he didn't have to take it. They did it at home. You could do the same thing. And most likely that's the type of I don't think I need to hire a tutor, but just my kids on their own, they'll study these things. If these are the things that they're interested in, then that's how we'll handle it. You know, that's just what we're gonna do. And I always ask my kids, do you want to go to a different school? You want to go to literature school? You want to go to a modern Orthodox school? And they say no, they like the school they're in. So I give my kids a choice. They can't say I force anything on them. Other parents don't give their kids a choice, and it's the parents' choice to do that. School choice belongs to the parents, not to the kids, because most kids are going to... Because then when I ask the kids, so what do you want to do? I don't want to go to school at all. That's not a choice. And homeschool, we can handle homeschool for English. We don't need to hire a tutor. I mean, we're educated people. We can handle homeschool for English, for secular studies. But for religious studies, I don't have patience to teach Aleph Beis to kids. When the kids are ready to learn Gemara, to learn Mishnayos, I have geduld for that. I get very bored teaching Aleph Beis. That's not my thing. So, but to teach Gemara, to teach Tanakh, to teach these things, I'm happy to do it. But still, Mistama, we're going to send them to yeshiva for these things. But that's my approach, meaning, but certainly this is why I outright oppose Naftali Monster. I think he's an evil person. Not because he's not frum or he's modern or this or that. That's none of my business. He could go convert to Christianity, all I care. I don't care what he does religiously. I kind of would prefer he'd convert to Christianity, to be honest. What I do care is that he's trying to stop me, and not even just stop me, stop all kinds of people from having their religious freedom. And that is wrong. Religious freedom is what this country was built on. And to go and have it, and to be master to the government, and to try to destroy religious freedom. I mean, he's openly aligned himself with communist ideologies that are against, he's teaming up with Cynthia Nixon, who's a communist, and with other communists, and that's his MO. And so I have no patience for someone like that. He is an anti-American, and he's really an insult to everything America stands for. It was just Memorial Day. These men and women died in wars to protect us from people like Naftali Monster. So that's my answer. And America is really a great country. I was thinking today was Chaf Gimel Iyar, which is a fast day in Vermiza, where my ancestry, my holy Zayda, the Chavas Yoyer, I call myself Koblenz Ruv because the Chavas Yoyer was Reuven Koblenz. He was also Reuven Verms. And in Verms, they had a fast day on this day to remember that, 400 years earlier, 1,000 years ago, almost, there was pogroms and the Jews got killed there, and the Tzionim like to say, if there was only a state of Israel, this would have stopped it. It wouldn't have stopped it, because we see what's going on in the state of Israel. The state of Israel is making things worse for the Jews. More, they had their Memorial Day. Over 20,000, I think it's now 24,000 Jews, something like that, have been killed in wars and terrorism that was instigated by the Zionists. So that's not. But America is a worldwide ideology, like Bono said. If America was around 1,000 years ago, I think the world would be much different. Maybe not then, maybe not 1,000 years ago, but by now, I think if America would have existed 1,000 years ago, there wouldn't have been a Holocaust 70 years ago. Meaning that the world would have advanced so much with this ideology of America. And I don't mean America just a piece of land. And that's the problem with it. I mean the idea of America. That's why I'm upset that Obama, he changed the name of Mount McKinley to Denali, because he's just saying that America is just a country like any other country, and so we have the indigenous peoples and this. No, America's an idea. The indigenous people now, even though they suffered years ago, but now they're living better than they ever have, and the only ones who are suffering are the ones that the Democrats are making to live on the reservations. If we just integrate them into society, like many states do, and they were just like everybody else, they would also be much better. That's the problem in Israel too. They have to separate the Arabs and the Jews and make these identity politics matter, which they shouldn't matter. And that's why it's so important to protect individual liberties, individual freedoms, and that's what America's all about, and that's why I have no patience for someone like Naftali Monster. Again, his stated goals, which I don't believe to be his real goals. I think people like him, when they're done with us, they're going to attack the mosques and the churches and everything else. They're communists. They're enemies of America. They're enemies of everything America was built on. And so I have no respect for Naftali Monster. Naftali Monster is not only an enemy to the Hasidic Jewish community, and not only that, but his ideas, they were threatening the literature schools too. They were even threatening the non-Orthodox schools. They were threatening the Catholic schools. They were threatening the Muslim schools, the Protestant evangelical schools, the secular private schools. This type of ideology that doesn't care about individual freedoms, it's a threat to all Americans. Naftali Monster is not just an enemy to the Hasidic Jews with the beard and payas. They're an enemy to every freedom-loving American, including the atheist, the libertarian atheist, someone like Chvez, like Penn Jillette, or like Austin, what's his name? Those people are threatened by people like Naftali Monster. He's an enemy of America, Naftali Monster. He don't get fooled by him. He's a George Soros type evil dude. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you all later. Take care. And thank you for the kind words. I don't mean anything disrespectful. I'm just speaking my mind. All right, take care.